Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and appreciate you guys hanging with me a little bit and swinging by the channel. And guys, it's story time again. About every month or so, I like to tell a story from back in the day, and I've got a good one for y'all today. It's the probably the most heartbreaking, experience I've ever had as far as losing a fish in a tournament that cost me big time. And this still is like it happened yesterday. I mean, this was one of the most vivid experiences I've ever had because it was such an impactful loss. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. I think you guys might enjoy it. Also, guys, a couple quick things before we get started here. Sorry about the noise in the background. We got a train track behind the house here, and it's like the busiest train track I've ever seen in my life. They're always jacking on something down there. But anyway, guys, before we get started, a couple quick things. Anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, just go to my Facebook page, Intuitive Angling with Randy Blaukat, which is now the name of my Facebook. Shoot me a private message for details, get you all lined out with that. And guys, also, quick reminder, Tackle Warehouse has got they started their big spring fishing sale, 25% off on a bunch of stuff on the website. I'll have my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video. And if there's one thing that you guys can do, if you like intuitive angling and you want to give something back, is just use my link, bookmark my link, and anytime you need to order tackle, if you use that link, the channel gets a small percentage of the commission on anything you buy. So it's not a lot, but it adds up after a while, so I really appreciate that. Okay, guys, this was a Bassmaster it's either a top 100 or top 150 tournament down at Lake Murray, South Carolina. I fished a bunch of tournaments at Lake Murray over the years. I fished a couple Megabucks tournaments. I fished several FLW tour events, several Bassmaster top 100s and top 150s. I really like Lake Murray. I fished the Forestwood Cup there one year at Lake Murray. Got a lot of time on Lake Murray, but this was one of the earliest events that I'd ever fished there. In fact, it may have been the first tournament I ever fished at Lake Murray. This was back in the mid-90s, I'm guessing. It may have been longer than 25 years ago. So anyway, in this particular tournament, this was back when not many people knew about it, but a floating worm was really good at Lake Murray. This was a fall tournament. Most floating worm tournaments, or most of the time you use floating worms in the springtime of the year. But Murray was one of those lakes that was unique because they bid it in the fall time. And there was not a lot of people that knew about a floating worm. A couple of us did, and I got onto this floating worm bite. So anyway, in this particular tournament, in the situation, the water was really clear and it was really low this particular year at Murray. It was super, super clear. On the lower end of the lake, you had probably 10 foot of visibility, very, very clear. And I got onto this deal about fishing a floating worm real close to the surface. I wasn't on the surface, but I was fishing it slow just underneath the surface. And after practice, I figured out that these fish, they did not want to get a good look at the floating worm. You had to keep it up close to the surface, and you had to work it slow. So what you had to do is I made a long cast with it. I kept my rod tip, my spinning rod, high in the air, and I just jerk it like that and try to keep it about that far into the water. So given that, I could see a lot of the fish that hit it. It was almost like a topwater bite. It was so fun. I mean, I can't remember, it was a 3 or 4 day tournament, but the first 2 or 3 days or whatever it was of the tournament, it's like 90% of the fish that I saw, that I caught, I saw them actually come up and swim up and get the bait. The only ones that I didn't is like if the wind came up or something and I couldn't. But anyway, I was doing good in the tournament, and going into the last day of the tournament, I think I was in like third or fourth place, and I was only, I was real close to leading. I was only like a pound or so out of the lead, so I had a really good chance to win it. And according to the weights, the way that I figured it up, I figured if I caught probably, I don't know, I'm going to guess 13 or 14 pounds, something like that, I'd probably win the tournament. I mean, that was sort of the gauge that I set. I felt if I caught 12 pounds, this was back when Murray was tougher. I felt if I caught 12 pounds, I'd be close to winning, or I'd have a shot. And I felt if I caught 13 or 14, I would definitely win the tournament. So anyway, the last day of the tournament there, the wind had slicked off. It was super, super calm. It was Saturday, a lot of boats on the water. Fishing was tougher. It was bright, sunny conditions. The fishing was significantly tougher. So I'm catching one here and one there, and it was 5 fish limit. And by the end of the day, we had probably, I don't know, an hour left to fish, and I had 4 fish in the box that weighed about 12 pounds. I had 4 really good ones. I needed one more, and I knew, since I figured 12 or 13 pounds would probably win, I knew I was right there. I could possibly win with what I had, but I knew if I had one more, I'd definitely win. So anyway, I'm fishing. I'm working my way to the back of this cove, and I'm in the middle of the cove, and the water is probably 20 foot deep or so. And on a long cast, I might be able to hit either side of the bank. So I make this super long cast with the floating worm, and back then I was using mono, so a super long cast wasn't that long. But I made this long cast. You gotta remember, it's gin clear visibility, glass smooth. I throw it out there, and I'm working this worm like this across the surface, and all of a sudden I see this freaking tank. I mean a tank slowly start to come out of the depths, and this fish slowly swam up, and it's a giant. It's probably, I don't know, in that range of a 6 to 7 pounder, a big one. I mean, the biggest fish I'd caught all week was probably 3 3/4 or something. This was a giant. This was a 6 or 7 pounder. It swam up in slow motion, and the water was so clear, I could see the fish swimming forever. And it just, like, real methodically, it's swimming up like that. And in slow motion, I'm talking about as slow as you can possibly imagine, and I could see it perfectly, that fish opened its whole mouth and just slowly grabbed that floating worm that far into the surface. Big old mouth. Grabbed that floating worm, started slowly swimming back down with it, and my heart is like pumping through my chest at this, because I know this is the winning fish right here. So, and I told myself, I had my wits about me. I said, do not set that hook too soon. Just let her have it a little bit and set the hook. So I let her swim 3 or 4 foot with her, and I leaned into her and I got her. So I'm fighting it to the boat, and it's so clear, guys. I can see her fighting everywhere. And right off the bat, she jumps about 3 or 4 feet in the air, survives the jump, goes back down, and I'm reeling the fish in at this point. She swims about probably 10 feet closer, and at this point she's probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 feet from the boat. She comes up and jumps again, freaking giant. I mean, it's again 6 pound class fish in that range. And then she comes back down, and all of a sudden she kicks it into gear, and she, like high speed, she starts smoking right past my boat, and she starts smoking out into open water behind the boat. And I'm back reeling as fast as I can. And this fish is like, I'm talking, it's taking out line, and it gets way out there. I'm talking, this fish is like 50, 60 feet behind the boat, and it comes up and jumps about 4 feet in the air and survives the jump again. So I got this she's already jumped 3 times. And I'm thinking, this fish has got to be getting tired. And it's 50 foot behind the boat. So I fight her back halfway to the boat. She jumps again, survives the jump. And so I'm getting her up, and I've got her right under the boat. Like, this fish is like swimming like 3 or 4 feet under the boat. She's just about tired out. I can see she's slowing down, and I'm on my knees, getting ready to lip her in there. And I get her about probably, like I said, 3 feet from the surface, and she opens her mouth. The floating worm comes out of her mouth. And I'm like, I just freaking dropped F-bombs. I could not believe it. It's like, I had this fish on forever. It was such an unbelievable strike. It was such a perfect hook set. Everything about it was perfect. And lost that fish, and as it turned out, I never caught my 5th fish, and I think I missed winning the tournament by 1.5 pounds or something. So I got analyzing that. It's like, why did I lose that fish? And you know why it was? And I figured that one fish, I figured it out, that has saved me ever since. I had a 4/0 hook in that floating worm, and ever since then, I downsized. I went to a smaller floating worm hook, like a 1/0. And guys, ever since I started going with a smaller hook on a floating worm, I hardly ever lose one. But anyway, guys, that's one of many. And like I said, I don't mean to sound like making excuses, but this is probably one of over 20 Bassmaster tournaments that has happened to me, where I've had fish on just like that cost me winning, where I finished in the top 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever. So I don't know. I'm a fish losing mother. I'll tell you that. And I don't. It's not that. And the thing that's frustrating about that is I pride myself on being meticulous on details and trying to figure out any type of thing that's going wrong. But sometimes like that, it's like there's nothing. There's nothing that I did wrong other than I felt that I had a little bit too big of a hook in the worm. So sometimes it's just the way the fish bites the lure, and there's nothing you can do about it. And maybe that was a prime example. So anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the story. We'll talk later.